Cet atelier donc numéro 3, moi je pense que c'était un atelier très important.
I believe that the third workshop was really important because at the time of the last Congress on sorghum in Bucharest, we really summed up what happens in the sorghum industry. So what would an organized industry look like? And we realized that sorghum grains are really not well known from. And without knowledge, you cannot have an organized industry. Just as well, on the market, there are very few reasons to get sorghum from those who would have to stock such products and eventually meet a demand. So there was really a lack of efficacy, and farmers were not interested in sorghum when instead they should have aimed at innovating. Yesterday, we had a roundtable with several economists who showed us the current tendencies in politics and economics of sorghum worldwide. We realized that everything depends on each country's exports. That's particularly true for the USA, because 70% of sorghum production was destined for the Chinese market, and this commercial trade war that has been waged between the two countries created a lot of problems. So in the third workshop, we worked on the opportunities to valorize and the short circuits, so to speak, for sorghum. We focused on organizing the market and on a stocking and trading mechanism. Somebody came. There were a few testimonies of short circuits, so to speak, from farmers and several different outlets. The second part was about the quality of sorghum, of grain sorghum, and of several other innovations that were tested out or actually put into the field. The aim was to show that to the transformation industry that there are several clichés, which are, by the way, false about sorghum. The conclusions we have reached are those following, which you can see in the slides. Sorghum is a species with high variability, offering varied opportunities of outlets. There are so many, you can actually miss some. To create this dynamics of sorghum, you really have to focus on it. The main use for sorghum, I believe it is feed, and this was also shared by the workshop. As you know, 60% of cereals in Europe, be it grain or forage, is for the livestock industry, livestock feeding industry. However, you need to get the innovations in the human food industry to this field. Many Italian producers who are very innovative at an industry level, but also for the human food level, brought to us products such as sorghum milk, sorghum beer, cookies, and so on. So you can see that there is really a huge potential, as well as when it comes to organic farming. we really need to enhance the nutritional aspects of grain sorghum. However, also because it's gluten-free, you know, but when you talk about gluten, you really get into the tendencies and fashionable fields. You don't really need to talk about gluten. You really need to focus on antioxidants, iron, because sorghum is really rich in that, and it has really interesting nutritional values when it comes to human food, to a human diet. Thanks to a series of very interesting molecules, we saw that sorghum, that the whole sorghum can be used for several different products, such as colorants for textile products. Then there was a focus on bioplastic. So sorghum can really represent an answer to several different requirements from today's market. As we all know, not all of these possibilities have been explored. I know that sometimes I may be shocking to people, particularly when I say that we really need to push for the livestock feeding industry. But this industry really will really get sorghum more visibility, because if 60% of the sorghum is used by the livestock feed industry, without this kind of visibility, we would not be able to implement the dynamics and processes we really hope to get to. We then talked about the lack of market organization. We then addressed several other issues, the first one being the limitation from an from an availability standpoint in the relationship between stockers and producers and sellers. The 50% of French sorghum is exported to Spain, which is used in the livestock feed industry. There are some difficulties when it comes to providing products, of course, in exports, which aims at guaranteeing a certain level of volume, so optimizing harvests is a key factor. We are in the southwest of France here, and one of the very first producers talked to us about his experience, but there is really a major difference in this sense. And yesterday's yesterday's workshop shown us how to manage sorghum as a minor species in order to provide more guarantees in terms of demand and outlets, as well as we have this need to educate farmers and growers on agronomy and economic aspects in this industry, which is certainly going to grow. After that, we talked about short circuits, so to speak, which can be implemented at a regional level, so the individual farmer can collaborate with a regional or local industry working in the industry sector, transformation industry sector. You can also talk with PMEs who work for the transformation industry from the other door, so to speak. But you may also have more important scales at a European level. The Sorghum Development Project doesn't only focus on Europe. It also aimed at Ukraine, Russia. I mean, you can talk about local outlets with a Russian holding with 700,000 hectares of land, or you can also have outlets for ducks. There is really a huge potential, production potential, and you may really get optimal results with short circuits. A Romanian farmer told us about his production, as well as his link with a growers network to produce biofuels, not so many biofuels actually, it's bioenergy, so electricity and incinerators. Actually, I didn't know about that. I only knew about biogas. So, as you can see, there is really a great potential for the implementation of short circuits. Please bear in mind that we do not have to depend on exports. We really need to maximize European production of sorghum and to guarantee that the production for European farmers and that they get recognition. I'm really sorry, I'll have to rush through this. I'm sorry. What I forgot to tell you before is that I really tend to talk a lot. I have 1 or 2 minutes, perhaps. So there still are cliches and stereotypes about sorghum. For instance, that about tannins, which is not true. There is this misconception that sorghum is rich in tannins. Especially in European sorghum, thus leading to a limitation in its use in the feed industry, especially when it comes to Argentinian sorghum, which allegedly is more rich in tannins. However, European genetics have shown us that tannins levels are quite low indeed. We talked about outlets and opportunities, about the quality of proteins, the starch content, digestibility, when it comes to human food as well, and the human diet as well, it is a really interesting product as well. Being a low input crop and a drought resistance crop, it is quite interesting from an environmental point of view as well. Also, because sorghum could be really today's crop, a modern crop, because we need to change our growing methods in light of climate change. We really hope that by 2025 we will be able to implement 5 to 10% of cereal consumption in short circuits development. We talked about millions of hectares, 3, 5, 6 millions of hectares. That's a lot of land. It is true, but we really hope to be able to do this with other crops as well. 5 to 10%, that's not much, but it would really be a major step forward. We're waiting for a clear signal by the European Union or by countries in the European Union, which could help us moving forward and developing this project. We have received European aids to promote sorghum production in several countries, not just in the European Union, you know, the 28 countries. These financial aids were really easy to get, which means that sorghum is actually needed, that we need to implement this project. By working with other cereals as well, the goal is not to impose sorghum on other crops, but to have a supplementary opportunity to bring a new wind of change for farmers and for consumers as well. Thank you very much.